Oh, okay, welcome to Iowa Genealogical Society's Family Tree Maker Special Interest Group on Super Bowl Saturday. So for those of us that aren't being all that sport minded, I'd rather be watching the Olympics, but that's one of those things. So today I just have at the beginning of the handout, there is a list of the stuff going on at IGS. The Genealogy for All workshop series that is going to take the place of our spring conference because you get more sessions, more information is being provided. So there's that. If you want to join in person for a beginning genealogy refresher, that's going to be in March, as well as a couple of additional classes and opportunities to show off your family tree stuff. So take a look at that stuff. And today we're going to start at the beginning of Family Tree Maker guides again. So, we kind of do this in a cycle. And I love the fact that we always learn something new. And this time I was learning what got added because of the 2024 version. So a lot of stuff I thought, oh, they didn't touch that. And I'm like, oh, there's two more options there. So yes, there's stuff going on. So let me share my screen so you guys can see my family tree maker. And I gotta move some zoom controls. Okay, there we go. So we're going to start with some really basic stuff. If you've been actively using your family tree maker, this is going to feel like, how we do that. But we do have some new people with us. So within this panel, this is when I first launched Family Tree Maker. This is the plan workspace. You can select a tree that you have from here, either from this drop down option of trees that you've added, or you can go to the tree browser. And I just want to take a little bit of time and show this tree browser option because it goes out and looks on your computer for any Family Tree Maker trees that are on your computer. And if you're like, I don't remember starting that tree, you could click on that and then open it in the file location with this option down here. So that will let you open that tree and decide, you can say, oh, it's in my 2019 folder. I remember doing that. Or you can just highlight it and just open the tree from here. So whatever you can do. You can see you have options in the tree browser for recent, all trees, things in your family tree folder. If you've got trees that you're syncing to Ancestry, you can take a peek at those. And if you're using Tree Vault option, you can look at those. So this is the tree browser option. I tend to live in the top two trees here. This is, most of you guys know, Craig and I don't have any kids, so I started a tree for my family and a tree for his family, thinking never the twain shall meet until we discovered through DNA that his half-second cousin is my uncle by marriage. And so their descendants from that aunt and uncle, we have shared cousins. So, and I don't put too many of them in Craig's tree because he doesn't know them at all because it's a half cousin. So it's one of those things. But I want to start with the other thing is we're going to go through. I just want to point out this main bar here across the top is the workspace menus. So this is called the plan workspace. You can see this is where you can start a tree. You can import a tree. We'll talk a little bit about that when we start working on each of the workspaces. There's the people view tree. Let's see if I can click on. And it's not, I can't get off of the plan page until you pick a tree, just so you know. So once you've loaded a tree, this panel here gives you direct access to the workspaces all the way across here. Connect is new with the 2024 version. So if you don't have that installed yet, don't panic that you're missing something. It was new with 2024. And the menus and the keyboard shortcuts are all listed right underneath here. Now this is the Windows view. The Mac view puts some of this stuff is up in an upper panel up here and not down below. So just so you know, there are some design differences between the two versions, but not the features and functionality is the same. It's just how it's presented. So in the file option, this is where, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about this stuff today. The edit menu is a little more advanced, and we'll cover that later. View are shortcuts to all of the workspaces. The person view we'll talk about when we do more people stuff, and we're going to spend more time on tools. Some of these we're going to talk about today, but most of them we will talk about at a later time. And then help is how do you get help? So help is this one at the top is the built-in help. Know that there are some training tutorials that will take you to Ancestry Academy. For those of you that may not know, Family Tree Maker was at one point in its history owned by Ancestry. They didn't design it, but they acquired it. And while they acquired it, they enhanced it and they created a bunch of training videos, and which are still, for the most part, still valid. Much of the layout and function and features of Family Tree Maker have not changed dramatically since the early days of the application. They've been enhanced a little bit, but if you're looking for basic features and functionalities, those tutorials can be really helpful. The companion guide here, if you click on that, it will download the PDF to your computer, which is great. It's the same book that if you bought a copy of the printed manual, it's the same one. And it's searchable because it's a PDF, which is why I prefer the PDF version, because I can search it and find what I'm looking for. This Connect Workspace is an introductory tour of this new Connect Workspace up here. There isn't a lot of documentation on that, and when we get to that workspace, we'll talk about that there. There's a feedback option right here. This middle section is kind of what happens when you first install the application. You want to register that you've got it listed. If you want to join the Tree Vault module, which we'll talk about as part of the Connect module. If you're going to connect to Ancestry and Family Search so that you can see hints, or if you want to sync your tree to Ancestry, that module comes into play. They even offer you the standard 14-day free trial on Ancestry if you don't have that. I would suggest that you do that directly with Ancestry and not necessarily through Family Tree Maker. And then checking for updates and upgrades is just in that middle module there. The official technical support for Family Tree Maker from Software McKeeve, which is now the new owner of the application, is through this button right here. And it will open up a chat box within the browser that you have set up. And that's how you get, you interact with a real life person. It's available 24/7. And if you want to, you can go to the Family Tree Maker user group on Facebook, has a great write-up on how to have a successful interaction with your live chat. Those people on that website or that Facebook page actually monitored that page. So you want to take advantage of that. Make a note, there is no telephone number support for Family Tree Maker. That is handled by third-party people. They tend to charge you a fee. They are not associated with Family Tree Maker Software McKeeve organization. So for the most part, those that have used them have felt like they were scammers. So I put that in the notes. And then this about Family Tree Maker just tells you which version you've got installed. So that's the help module right there. Opening and closing, we've talked about, you just click the icon on your desk and it will open. My routine, the suggested routine, if you're going to close Family Tree Maker is, and we'll talk about this in a future session about doing backups and compacting your files, but I tend to always go to File Close so that closes down anything that's open within the application, makes the database behind the scenes a little healthier. And then after it's closed and I'm on a blank page, then I go down to exit, or I use the X in the corner. So that tends to be my preferred process for doing that. We've talked about picking a tree, how to open a tree. So we're now into basic movement within the application. So under tools, this options button for Windows, it's called Preferences General on the Mac version. I believe that's still true for the 2024 version. Opens up this window. And this is where you can set, I'm going to move this up just a smidge here. This is where you can set a lot of the way the application runs on your computer. And we're going to spend a little time today talking about these options. So within this general box right here at the top, you set where you want Family Tree Maker to store new tree files. You'll notice I have mine set for on my D drive, which is where I keep all of my data files. You can have it be in documents under the C file for Windows, kind of wherever you want. And you can change it by just using the browse, accessing your file explorer or your file structure on the Mac, and picking what you want, where you want that to be. So that's what that's all about. So if you create a new tree, that's where it's going to get stored. And then we've got some checkbox options here. So the first one is automatically check for program updates. So you check that box, and every time the program launches, it reaches out to Makiva and says, hey, is there something I need to be aware of? It's just kind of a good practice to always have the most current version or update. This is also where you control how some of the pieces within Family Tree Maker behave. So you can tell it, every time I add media, use the caption instead of the file name. So we know when we store images on our computers, they sometimes get funky file names. If you don't want to rename them and just manage them the way you have them, you can do that, but you can tell Family Tree Maker, use the name I put in the caption field on the media workspace. You can just check that box and say, always use the caption. You can tell it you want to crop portrait photos for display. You can change, this is one of the new ones with 2024, is you can check this to say, change the relationship status to deceased upon the death of either spouse. So if you are aware that when you set up a marriage, typically the default value for that marriage is ongoing. So, and it'll say ongoing even after they're all dead and buried, right? With the 2024 version, they introduced the ability to set this so that when either of the spouses died, you could change the status to deceased. You got to decide if that's what you want to do, okay? The other thing is that in this, you can say, when I open a new tree, I want to always start on this workspace. So you can see I have mine set to the people workspace, which is the image that you have right here behind here. But you can decide which workspace do you want it to open to. Do you want it to open to the plan space where maybe you're keeping track of all your tasks that you're working on? Or maybe you want it to always go to the whatever I was on when I closed it, that's the one I want to open on. You could do you, okay? So this is where you have the ability to make that change, is where do you want, when the application opens, where do I want it to start? In the second column in this general box, you've got the automatically backup family files. So this means when you close Family Tree Maker, it will automatically create a backup of the Family Tree Maker files. Now, it's not the same as a full backup. It's just the tree, but it captures any changes that you've made in that session, okay? So you can say, and that's where this is a default feature. And if you close Family Tree Maker and you see that little backup progress line, and you're like, why does it do that? That's because this checkbox is marked, okay? If you're wanting to keep track of the LDS, temple, we have a word for it. The temple, I can't think of it. Anyway, you can show those and they show up as up here in this name box as little boxes that are indicated whether you have data or you don't have data. And there are some additional work fields that open up to capture the LDS information that you want to use. You can say use large fonts. I haven't found that that makes any difference. And now with 2024, we have the ability with easy on the eyes to blow up sections of the application. So, you know, that might be more helpful than trying to manage the large fonts. And then this show sync weather status on the Ancestry sync icon. So that's this icon up here, and you see that little dot, that green dot, that's the sync weather saying you're good to go if you're wanting to do an Ancestry tree sync. I have seen it orange and I have seen it red because I have that icon checked. And then you can pick what your color theme is. So you can see that I have this page that has this blue background here and this olive green. That's what's called the Ancestry theme colors. You can do Windows theme colors or you can do Windows Classic. I assume there are equally descriptive names on the Mac, but I leave it on the Ancestry color. Okay, so that's what all those controls are about. In this fast fields feature is a way to speed up data entry by automatically filling in certain repetitive data that you type. And to be honest, I get a little frustrated. You notice I have them all checked. So part of that is if you're in a name field and you've got data that, you know, surnames that you see a lot, it will say, oh, this must be what you mean. Or when you go to click on adding a father, it will put the surname in there. Or if you're adding a child, it will default to the surname. That's where some of this stuff comes from, is you've said, preload that stuff for me. So source titles, if you start typing, it will use something that you've used before. Place fields, if you're using the place field here, you start typing and you get that long drop-down pick list. That's where that stuff comes from. And the same with description fields. So if you start typing, it will say, hey, maybe this is what you want. And you can just pick the value that you want in that field. So that's what the fast field options are. In this hints section, you can say, show me hints from Ancestry. This only works if the tree you're working in is synced to Ancestry. So this tree that I'm displaying right here is not synced to Ancestry. So you can see here in my index list, I don't have any leaves because I'm not going to get Ancestry hints because it's not synced. And you have an option to say, and oh, by the way, I do not want hints from Ancestry subscriber trees. So you can turn that off if you want to turn that one off as well. And you can see here, show hints from Family Search, which is what these little blue boxes are here in the index and on my profile in the pedigree charts. Those little blue boxes are Family Search hints. Now, there are some variations which we'll cover in another session, but if it's black in the middle, it's a record hint. If it's clear in the middle, it's a tree hint from the Family Search tree. So just so you know. And then when we talk about the web search workspace, there's an introductory screen that comes up that reminds you about privacy and how that screen works. And because I don't work in that space all the time, I want to see that screen to remind me on that. So I can turn that on and off if I want to. Okay. You can see here down below, we've got an option to pick which PDF driver we want to use. You see, I have mine set to none. And when you say print to PDF, it will use whichever thing you select for. So you can see it goes out to my computer and says, oh, you've got all these applications that'll create a PDF for you. which one do you want to use? And I don't mess with it. I just said none. As a general rule, I default to Microsoft Print to PDF, but you see I have none and I've had no problems with printing to PDF. The same with merge default options. So if you're merging two people or you're merging a fact, I've got it set to delete the differences. So you get that. And when we do merging, we'll have a separate session to talk about how we do that. But Family Tree Maker will present what you have and what on both people or facts. And you can pick which one you want to use as you work your way through that example. My default is delete the differences. And this one, the other option is you could keep the differences as an alternative. I don't want to have that extra data hanging around. I'll make a choice based on the sources I have, and that's what I want to do. And then there's a spell check options here that will show up on every single tab as we go through these today. So spell check options it just opens up what do you want to do for spell checkers? How many maximum do you want it to show? If you've got names or words or places that you use a lot, you can add names to your user dictionary so that you spell them consistently. Because when I start working through cleaning up my places are kind of a mess because I either use the spelling in the document that I had and it doesn't match the map. I can have a mess there. So I wish I had taken advantage of this a little bit better. So, and this about is just the software behind that. So that's the general tab. If we go over to names, dates, and places, this is where you can set some of the default options. So you can say, I want my dates to be displayed day, month, year, or I can do month, day, year. And it will give you an example. So if I switch this, you can see that it will display as month, day, year with a comma, as opposed to day, month, year without a comma. So it just shows you what the difference is. Okay. In durable dates or double dates, I'm overdue for a prescription change on my glasses. We know that there's a period of time, particularly in England, where there were double dates that were, officially used before 1752. And you can change that date here if you want to. So where you get that option where you're putting in a date and you can put 1689/1690, that's driven by what date you put in here. A lot of times you don't know if the record wasn't clear, you just use whatever date you have. But just so you know that it is supported, double dates are supported by Family Tree Maker. The fact labels for the word about is about. That's how I want to show that. But you can you can change that to be whatever you want it to be. You can have it spelled out. You can use circa. You can use whatever you want. So that's a control there. The data input form, month, date, year, or month, day, month, year. I tend to type it this way. So having it set this way doesn't really help me because I've, out of habit, typed a lot of mine day, month, year. So it won't change it for me because I don't type it that way. If you're back into ancient date notation, which is before 1000 AD, you can set your preferences here on if you want to use the BCE or BC. So from that perspective. Name index options. So this is the name index right here. You're seeing it on the people view. If I use an also known as, which I've added it over here as a data entry point for also known as, I'm telling Family Tree Maker, if it's available, show it after the middle name. So you can see here where these quotes are. Those are records that are set up as what's in the quotes is my AKA. So I've put you can see I've put some notes in there, or I've used an alternative name in a couple of places here. That's because I want it to appear after the middle name, as opposed to a separate line item. So if I had said Blair, Mary A, I would have, if I had checked the second one, it would say Blair, a possible daughter, right, as an alternative name, and it would show it for that same person in the tree. Okay. You can use titles if available. So you can, if you're going to use titles, you can use them, and if you're going to use married names for females, so you can tell Family Tree Maker display the married name for females. I've tried that. I don't care for that. One, it's not good genealogical standard. And two, I've got women that got married 2 or 3 times. So which last name? You know, I may forget the last name of their last husband because I'm not related to that line. So for me, maiden names make more sense, but you know, you can set it up however you want to do it. And then place names options is automatically check the place authority when entering the name. So what that does is behind the scenes, Family Tree Maker has a places database based on Bing Maps. I'll just tell you that right now. It's based on Bing Maps. And if it's not in the Bing Maps, it's going to give you kind of a warning message that says, hey, are you sure? And then you can say exclude selected countries from the resolved nameplate. So you can say, I don't want to exclude any of those countries. Doesn't matter. And then I still have my spell check options, and the defaults just on each of these tabs just changes whatever you've selected to the default value of Family Tree Maker. So any questions on this name states peg? Okay. On the warnings, now this is, you know, up here at the top, if you put something in, you get that little yellow bar that goes all the way across with this warning egg. I call them an egg. And you have an option if you want to see those or not. So you can turn them off. You can say, I don't want to see the non-critical errors. So you can uncheck that. And then you can decide how you want it to tell you about these other errors. So on double dates, leave the double dates as entered, use the double date formatting, or prompt me. And I have that set so it reminds me that this is a potential double date option. And so I have to think about how do I want it to be captured. Okay. The same with the 1 or 2 digit years, change it to first century, change it to the nearest century. So I don't mess with that because I'm not back that far. Copy media files. Now this is where if you're adding media files from your computer into Family Tree Maker, there's a little prompt that comes up that says, do you want to make a copy or do you want to make a pointer? And if you don't have this set to prompt me, you can tell it what you want it to do. So if you want to say, I always want to make a copy into my Family Tree Maker media folder, which we'll go deep dive on that when we do the media workspace, or don't make a copy, just make a pointer, which works fine. Your pointers will be displayed. But if you rearrange your files on your computer, that will break those pointers. So I have it set to prompt me. That's just me. Titles in a name fact, I can leave them, I can move them to a separate fact title. You know, there's a separate title fact. If you don't want the title with their name, you can make a separate title fact. I say prompt me. And the same with text in quotes in the nickname. I say prompt me. Move it. You can tell it to always move it to the AKA or leave it in the name fact. So you have choices. And the same with auto-populate smart stories. So auto-populate, leave it blank, or prompt me. And we'll talk about smart stories when we get to that section in the publish module. Okay. And then you have some other things that you can say, show me, don't show me these warnings, alerts. So Show alerts for unlikely birth, death, and marriage dates. These are where you've put in a child and the mother was 10, or you've put in a child and the mother had died, or, those kinds of things. So that's where it's unlikely. I don't know what the ranges are, but I'm like, yeah, remind me of that. Show me unrecognized place name indicators, ties with the other one. Show informations just to say, hey, did you mean to change their name? Maybe you were started typing data and you were in the wrong data field and you didn't want to mess that up. And so it'll prompt you to say, just so you know, you changed that. Prompt when sorting children in family view. So down here in this option down here in the family view is if they've got children from multiple spouses on either side of that relationship, you can sort the kids in so that they're in age order. And the same with a backup reminder before critical operations. So I get a prompt anytime I'm going to do a merge or anytime I'm going to do something that's pretty important change to the database, it will prompt me to say, hey, are you sure you don't want to do a backup? And I appreciate those, so I leave them on. So that's the warnings options here in this tab. And then we get to the references pages, and there isn't a lot here, but use individual reference numbers. If you want to use numbers for people, you can set up how you want that to look. Especially if you want to print that numbering system in your charts or your reports. And you have choices on which method, when we get to the publish module, on which kind of numbering system you want to use. And then we also have use relationship reference numbers. And for that, this is the second marriage, this is the third marriage, that kind of thing. So I leave that one on. Okay. Any questions about options for setting up the overall behavior of how Family Tree Maker works? Okay. I'm going to cancel out of that. I'm not saving anything I touched. So one of the things people want to know is how do you rename or delete a tree? So let's say you started a tree for, your son's fiance and then they broke up. So you don't really care anymore. So you can open up your tree list and you can find that tree and you can see right here, you have an option to rename the tree, delete the tree, and you could keep the tree, but just take it off the list, right? So maybe you're still happy with that girl and she knew you were working on it and you still want to finish the work. But you don't want it in your face all the time. So you can take it off the list. You can see we also have an option here on Family Tree Maker to open a tree in a new window. So what that does is it opens a completely separate instance of Family Tree Maker. You can have as many of those running as you want. So if you've got people that cross trees, or maybe you took a branch and you made a new tree because you're going to share that with a cousin, but you can't remember whether you made the same change in both trees, you can open them up side by side and compare. Okay, so open a new tree in a new window just launches a new instance of Family Tree Maker. So that's kind of the easy way to do the rename or delete the tree. Once you delete it, you can't get it back. There's no undo. So it'll warn you, are you sure you want to do this? But if you have it backed up, you can always restore it from a backup. So it's not the end of the world if you accidentally delete the wrong tree, as long as you've been using good backup procedures. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about this workspace tool today, because this is kind of the meat and potatoes part of Family Tree Maker. So we talked a little bit about the plan workspace. It has two tabs here. I've opened a tree, so it's now showing me the current tree data. So I've got some statistics. You can see that this tree is not uploaded to Ancestry. You can see that there's more options on what you want to see there. It gives you some more statistics if you want to play around with what that is doing there. That's the more option. You can see when I created it, when it was last saved, when the last backup was. So you can kind of know if you haven't been keeping up with your backups, it might be a time to change it. Okay. You can also, in this plan view, there's two tabs here, and we're going to spend a lot of time when we talk about the plan workspace about what this is. So there's tasks that you can manage. You can put them for a person or just a general task. You can put them in a category. You can see here, I have some data that I store in Family Tree Maker that's just for reference. So I have Quaker calendar information because I got quite a bit of Quakers, and when they say in their minutes that it was the 14th of the 3rd month, that's not March, and I never can remember, so I have it written up in a note here. I called it a task just because, one, I wanted to keep track of it. And you can use this for a lot of stuff. I have a huge amount of ancestry that was on Nantucket. It's part of the forefathers. They're my 9th, 10th, 11th, 9th, and 10th great grandparents on almost all of the mothers and almost all of the fathers. And so I've kept track of that. So that's what I use that for. And we'll talk about this in more detail. There's a change log. Family Tree Maker keeps track of 5,000 changes that you've made to this tree. Every time you touch a field, every time you make a change, it will keep track of that because it offers you the ability to do a rollback. So if you've made some really bad change and you need to go back and undo that, you can do that. Now, the caveat, and we'll talk about this more then, is if, say, I want to undo this edit source citation, that's fine. I can roll back all these changes back to here and put that back in, but then I have to go in and make these all again because it doesn't walk you through each of the next change you made and the next change. It doesn't do that. So you're going to want to capture that so that you can go back and make that change for it. So, and these are sortable. So if you're like, when did I make that change? When was I working on that person? You can find it. You know, it may not be that you want to change it, but you want to say, when did I make that change? Or when was I working on that person? You can find it here in the change log. So that's kind of cool. And then you can see the Ancestry web dashboard. I have some saved things. These will show up in web search. So I can, go to them directly from here. And there's options on how to make those updates. So that's the plan workspace. If I want to add a new tree, I can do it from here. I can just start typing. I can import, I can download a tree from Ancestry or Family Search, or I can download one from my emergency tree vault tree, which is part of Connect. Okay. The people workspace. This is kind of where I like to live in this view. And so we'll just briefly talk about what this is. You have two tabs, the tree view and the person view. So you see Oliver Blair is highlighted here. If I go to the person tab, this is all the detail that I have on Oliver Blair. So I'm in facts mode here. I can look at his timeline. I can look at all of his relationships. This is where you can change those relationships if you want to. But I can also, in this view, I can look at any given fact. What do I know about? What do I have about them for sources? You can see 00000 for something. And I can have person notes. So we have a whole session that we talk about notes. There are 9 note files in Ancestry. So we'll talk about that in detail as well as the media. So that's the person view. This is the tree view. These little buttons are the enlarge panel, which will enlarge it so that you can drill in and look at it more. And you have that on all three of these panels. That's the new Easy on the Eye module. All of these panels are adjustable. So if you've got 12 kids and you want to see them all, you can just pull them up. This will adjust depending on the amount of space that you give it. You can alter, when we get into the people panel, we'll talk about how you can turn these on and off. The same with this data entry panel. You can customize this view and put in whatever fields you want to see on a regular basis. Okay, so that's the people panel. Workspace. Places, every time you put a fact in and you give it a location, it adds to this places list. This is behind the scenes, this is running Bing Maps. So it automatically defaults to this view here. But what's kind of cool about it, any of them that have a question mark means the way I put that location into my Family Tree Maker places field does not match the database. So I can either clean it up or not clean it up. So we'll talk about that when we talk about places. But one of the cool things about this option is you can pick a location and you can see over here where it's attached to people. So if I pick this location, Antietam in Bedford County, Pennsylvania, I can see that Bryce Blair, and I can expand this out. That's where his death took place. Now it's always layered on top of a modern map. So you want to, we'll talk about when we get to places about, do you use the original place name or do you use the current place name, and how do you manage that? So we'll talk about that when we get there. American, this is alphabetical. So if you get to the United States, it will break it out by state, by county, by city, the same with any of the other countries. So once you get things that are into the places database, it becomes a little cleaner view of this space. Okay. Let's take a peek at the media workspace. This is all of these images. Sorry, somebody have a question?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I have a question about the places.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have several that are like, for instance, Brothers Valley City, Bedford County, Pennsylvania State. And then I have some USA, I have some United States, I have various. Is there any way to get those easily cleaned up?
Yes. So if you come here to places, they'll be alphabetically listed here. 1, 2, 3, 4. They'll be together in this list under index. And then as you decide which one you want it to be, you highlight one, you come over here and you change it to what you want it to be. So like here, if I wanted to say, this is Texas County, Missouri, and I'm going to add USA, okay? It will update that name for every person and fact listed in this list. So you don't have to go to the person. You can just update the place here, and it will update it for everybody listed here. So if I say,
thank you. Thank you.
So that's where it's kind of nice if you because you find that, and then you saw where it moved it. It moved it down here to Texas County in Missouri. So it's already, the question mark went away over here, and the question mark went away up here. So you can see, depending on what you have there. What's nice about it is it automatically will populate it to everybody and every fact in this list. So yeah, we'll cover that again when we do the places stuff. But if you're in the middle of that project, I totally understand that.
Thank you so much.
No worries. All right, so on the media panel, so first off, if you look at your computer file structure, you will see that the name of your tree has a folder that has an FTM on it. And then you will see the same name as the name of your tree with a media folder. And that's where all of this media sits, is in that media folder. If, on two caveats, one, you've said make a copy of something that you've attached to someone or something in your tree. So you've got it on your computer and you've got it in Family Tree Maker if you've said make a copy. If you're syncing your tree from Ancestry, it will always download it into that media folder. Now you can see here from this media folder, there's two tabs. This is the collection tab, which is all media. It comes with the ability to set up categories so that you can say, oh, I only want to look at the photos, or I only want to look at the documents, or I only want to look at the headstones. You can control what that looks like. And then there's the detail. So when you click on the detail page, it's whichever image was highlighted. And we get some cool things here. So you can see that this image has been linked to 3 sources. So that's a kind of a problem. And it's linked to 2 people. It's linked to Henry Thomas George with 2 facts. So when you look at the media stuff, it helps you organize what you're doing. And we'll talk about that between media and sources. Do you attach the media to the source, and then you attach the source to the fact, right? So that every time, so in this particular image, I've got Henry George, let's see, Swagger, Mitchell, Georges. So right now, I don't have this image attached to all of the whole family. I only have it attached to Henry Thomas. And that's probably because it came from a file that I uploaded from my mom, and she had synced it with Ancestry. And so it's kind of one of those goofy things. But you can see here that here's the name of the file on my computer, and here's where it's listed. So not a good job. I mean, you can see it's attached to my tree of the same name, Hoffman Katzer media folder. And this particular image is 1850 US Census, Federal Census. It doesn't say that this is the image from, Delaware Township in the county of Mercer in the state of Pennsylvania. So, we had family that was living all over the place in 1850. And some of my census pages just say 1850 census. They don't say it's the Pennsylvania Mercer County page. It doesn't say, so there's some of that stuff that I'm in the middle of trying to clean up. Now you can see here, remember we have that option to say, use the caption name for my media. Here's the caption name up here. So if I wanted to, I could augment this to say Pennsylvania Mercer County, right? And then it would just display it as the caption, not the file name. But right now they're the same. And on all of your media, you can mark them as private. So private means that they will not sync with Ancestry. Okay. And you can see there's a film strip here to walk your way through the whole collection and look at each image if you want to do some of that kind of cleanup stuff. Okay. So that's the media space, and we'll deep dive into that as we get to that module. Sources. Family Tree Maker does a really odd thing. They use sources for source citations. So we have a sources group, we have a citations panel, we have the source citation information, how you want to have that be worded. Do you want to include it in a reference note? And you can see where that source citation is linked in your tree. Okay. So, and what this panel does not show you is you can attach media to your sources. So you can create your source, attach the media, the census page, and then attach that source. Which is what I'm going to do to the George family, is I will attach that source to the facts for residents for each of the people in that census page. Okay. So you don't have to keep multiple copies of your media, and you don't have to necessarily keep multiple you don't have to create multiple sources when the three people are in that same source citation. You just link them or their fact to that. So we'll deep dive into this as well, but it's a little complicated when you get into the notes because there isn't a source and a citation. Family Tree Maker says source citation. That's what they call it. So it's just way more confusion than you need sometimes. Any questions on source citations? The nice thing is you can walk down, this is the 1850 census. However many pages I have, you can see I have Delaware, Mercer, Pennsylvania, rolls and pages. And they're, you can see that I have some of those citations in there more than once because I'm picking up different people, right? Not everybody that should be attached to that source. That's my nemesis. I'm sure some of you have the same problem. All right, moving on to publish. Publish is where you get your reports and your charts. They have a huge amount of charts and reports that are organized and available. And you can see that whoever you have highlighted in the people panel is this mini little panel here of what the report or the chart is going to be based on. So you can change it here. You can say, oh, I don't want Oliver, but I want his dad. So now I can rerun that report because I got Oliver and I don't have spouses or kids or anything because he's a sibling of my ancestor. And so I can change it to his parents, or I can change it. This little icon here, which you will see throughout Family Tree Maker, is an access to the index. So even though right now, if I open up people, it's highlighting on Israel Blair. Let's say I want to highlight me. So I can say highlight me. And it will update that pedigree chart so that now whatever I create in this tab is for that person. Okay, so when you see this little file folder icon, that lets you change to a different person within the index. And we've got charts, and we've got reports, and we've got people reports, and we're going to spend a lot of time in the published workspace going over reports and charts and the nuances. You can make them pretty. You can save them. You can see here I have some saved charts. I have some saved reports, and I have some saved books. And we will cover all of that when we go over the published workspace. But if you're looking for sometimes a really, quick place to come and get something printed out so you can share it with a family member, just remember to come to publish.
Sherry?
Yes.
Is there a report that would print off just specifically direct grandparents and not aunts and uncles?
You can, let me think about that. So grandparents. So that's going to be typically your pedigree charts, or your relationship charts. You can, so let's just open up this pedigree chart here. This is going to be direct line only. And you can specify, oh, I didn't realize this was, so this panel can go either way. You can make it bigger or smaller. It will, by default, it's typically a portrait page.
Yeah.
But if you change it to a book or a poster, it will make it bigger. You can say how many generations you want on a page, and how you want it to organize. And we'll spend a lot of time on that when we get to the published piece. And these little buttons up here are controls.
Yeah.
That control how much of this data you want to include.
So have you tried the book?
Yes.
Okay. And maybe that's what I really want to try. So
the book is designed so that you can put it in a book, right? Okay. It's designed so that you can publish it in a traditional flip book is what it's designed for.
Okay. Okay. And I guess I've not tried that.
Okay.
I mean, I mean, I knew about doing the pedigree, but then it's kind of like I don't get as many generations as I want because I really don't want it to be a poster
Right.
type thing.
Well,
But
and if you say, so this one is set to 5 generations on
right,
five per page. So if
yeah,
I drop this down to say I want it to be more readable, it will show you where that next generate, it's going to create a page for each of those next generations.
say that again. So what you click?
So I moved it to 4 generations per page.
Okay, okay,
And I'm saying I still want, and let's say I want to go up to 6 generations.
okay.
So this line will be on page 2.
Oh, okay.
And then the next line will be on page 3. So it will take you out to which line gets extended further. And you can see,
Okay.
I can still say, I want to do 4 generations on that, and it will put in however many I have in that line, up
Okay.
to 4.
Okay. I didn't know about that. Thank you.
Yep, no worries. The tricks of the trade, right? So we're going to spend some time in the published workspace going over charts and how to make all that stuff work and happen. The next workspace is the web search. This is kind of cool, and it takes some getting used to. Okay, so I'm still highlighted on me. So it went out and said, show me what familysearch.org has. So where I'm at is so let's be clear about this. I'm logged into Family Search. I mean, that's one of those things that you have to, on each page, you have to decide if I'm going to log into Family Search. On the people page, that's how you get hints. Or I can sign into Ancestry. So it tells me this tree's not uploaded, but I can still connect to Ancestry if I wanted to. And it brings back, because it highlights familysearch.org, it brings me to the search page for Family Search. And if I say find, see what it finds. And this is that nag. Remember I said that on the web search there was a nag that I wanted to be reminded of. So that's the nag. And now it's brought up everybody that's sort of related to me. And so it said, because I've highlighted Donna Jean Katzer, it's comparing me to Donna Jean. Well, Donna Jean is my dad's sister, technically his half sister. So I don't want to, mess with any of this stuff because that's not me. And it's probably not going to give me because I'm a living person in the tree, right? The Family Search tree. But this is what you can do. You can go to other websites from here. You can search in Google from here. So let's say you want to do a quick search on what can I find from somebody in your tree. You can just do a search. So it brings up Google. It says I'm not a robot. Yep, gotta figure that out. Google's kind of nuts about security. And so it's returned. You can see what it's done here. Here's the official search based on Family Tree Maker. And it says, yeah, there might be some stuff over on Ancestry. And it says it didn't match any of these things. So I don't have a lot of stuff that's still under my maiden name. I got married a long time ago. So it's one of those things. But if I were to switch to my dad, and you can see here, I'm not signed into Google. So anyway, what we're going to, we'll spend some time talking about how does this work? How do I get, you can see in the sample in the handout, finding somebody in Family Search or Ancestry, and maybe I want to bring that data into my person's profile, but I want to key it all. So it lets me compare side to side. Side to side, the data that's in the record and the data that I have, and then I can say merge it in. We'll spend a lot of time working on this. Okay. So this can be way cool. There was a former Russ Worthington who was a guru on Family Tree Maker who has still his videos are still out on YouTube, did all of his research from within Family Tree Maker. He went and did his ancestry research. He did it all from within Family Tree Maker. It hurts my head to think about it sometimes. Okay. And then this last workspace Connect is new. So it's tied to whether you have a tree vault tree, which means it's a subscription service for you to back up your tree up to cloud services at Software McKeeve so that you can get access to what's in your Family Tree Maker tree on your phone. They have a mobile app, and you can give permissions for people to share in your tree work within Family Tree Maker. So you can see here, I don't have a source tree identified because I'm not subscribed, but you can select guests. You can do matches in the tree. Now these panels will all look exactly the same because I don't have a tree. So what it can do though is you can then start to ask family members specific questions about people in your tree, and their responses through the application will get tagged as a little post-it note in your pedigree chart where you see you could see hints, but you'll see a little post-it note that you've either asked someone or they've replied back. And if you want to know, if you're anxious to know a little bit more about this, go to the help and watch the Connect Workspace tour. So I would recommend that you do that. You can see over here, there's this where they've moved the, your antenna tree is what they call it, but this is my tree vault tree that I could pick if I wanted to have backed up with them. So any questions about the overview we've talked about today? We're kind of starting back at the beginning. We're kind of covering the basics. The next thing we'll go into will be the plan workspace, how to take advantage of tasks and some of the categories there, and use, set up new trees, all that kind of fun stuff. Any other questions? I'm going to stop my share so I can see you guys because I can't see you. Okay. Hey, Reba. It doesn't hurt to sometimes go back and be reminded that there's some of those settings that we can set, and they might be driving you crazy. But we're going to work our way through the workspaces. It takes the last time we did this, it's about 13, 14 months to get through, because some of these workspaces take 2 or 3 sessions to get through them because of the complexity. And depending on your questions and what you need to know, or how we can, as a group, this is kind of crowdsourced stuff, make ourselves smarter users of the tool that we've chosen to use. Okay, no questions. I'll let you go fix your food for the Super Bowl or switch over to the Olympics. Or maybe you just want to start working on cleaning up your places.
Right. Thanks, Sherry.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Sherry.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Sherry.